So we're back again for another My Hero Academia review. We're well into the battle between Class A and B now, and it's really exciting delving into the different personalities and quirks that Class B have, and seeing how Class A measures up against them. It's pretty easy to assume that Class A is better because we've seen so many battles and obstacles they've had to face, but at the very end of the last episode, Class B proved that they can't be underestimated. Just before we head into the review though, I'd like to point out that I have read the manga and I know all the relevant plot points going forward, but for the sake of the review, I'll look at it from an anime-only perspective. It saves me from comparing back and forth between the manga and the anime and allows anime-onlys to join in too without being spoiled. So, with that being said, let's dive into the episode. At the beginning of the episode, we get a little bit of flashback for Class A's preparation just before the battle against Class B, where Shinso explains the concept of his quirk. Despite his obvious advantage at being able to brainwash someone who isn't aware of his quirk, the class quickly points out that he's at a real disadvantage once they become aware, especially when they become heroes and that kind of knowledge is readily known. This is where Shinso properly introduces the new gear he was wearing in the previous episode, most notably his mask that allows him to alter his voice to sound like another person so as to catch a victim unaware. And honestly, this is some of the coolest hero gear we've seen so far in the show, and it's a huge advantage to someone like Shinso. However, I also think that it can't be underestimated that you'd have to have some serious intelligence to be able to use it properly. You'd have to time it well and know where to jump into a conversation so as to catch your victim. It seems like something that sounds relatively easy to use, but when you put it into practice, it would actually be really difficult, and kind of shows not only how hard he's had to work, but if he succeeds, how worthy he is for the hero course. Obviously though, because Class A had to get an understanding of Shinso, they ran out of time to come up with a coherent plan, which explains why at the end of last episode, they were still discussing what to do when Class B were already prepared. At the very least, it shows that having an extra member on the team isn't the same as having someone from their own class. They have to learn how to incorporate someone new into the team, whereas the other team doesn't have to worry about how they all work together. So it's not as much of an advantage as it originally appears to be. Picking up straight from where we left off, Class A and Shinso are attacked in the beginning of the battle by Class B, who accurately predict the actions of Class A and capitalize on them. It leads off into a pretty strong start for Class B and shows that they aren't just some second-rate hero students. However, despite this, they're still at the disadvantage by having a wildcard like Shinso on Class A's team, and with Shinso's new mask that can replicate voices, they have little chance of evading the brainwashing quirk. We see Shinso brainwashing Beast, and Shinso attempts to secure him with his capture bandages, but is countered by Beast's classmate Tsuburaba, who uses air prison against Shinso. Bit disappointing here, it would have been great to see Shinso's own use of the capture bandages, but it is realistic and shows that despite his improvements, he still has a long way to go. But despite this, it gives the other students of Class A a chance to attack, with Kaminari electrocuting Beast and Tsu being able to grab Tsuburaba. So overall, his actions did contribute to them winning that little skirmish by unbalancing Class B's initial attack. Unfortunately for them though, Beast manages to somehow recover ridiculously quickly from being electrocuted by Kaminari, and is confronted by Kota and Kirishima who have been able to rejoin the battle. And yet despite Kirishima being one of the stronger hero students, Beast manages to quickly change form from Beast to human to Beast again and launch him to be captured by Shiozaki in a tangle of vines. Pretty cool moment from Beastie Boy, who's proving to be a real MVP, but again it's another serious blow to Class A as they lose one of their strongest players. And after having Beast also get Kota despite Tsu and Kaminari trying to save him, the battle slows down and the classes have a chance to regroup before they try and attack one another again. Beast really seems to be leading the team by this point and is really getting highlighted as a powerful player. The tables just keep turning and it's hard to tell at this point of the fight whether Class A is going to be able to stand up to Class B, as they just keep getting knocked back again and again. With Class A rounded down to just Tsu, Kaminari and Shinso, they focus on freeing Shinso from his air prison. And this is a pretty hilarious scene and kind of breaks up the action nicely. Just seeing Kaminari and Tsu swinging crowbars at the air prison while Shinso just sits on the floor is pretty funny to say the least. Meanwhile, Class B's teacher commentating in a really biased way, favouring his own class whilst All Might, Midnight and Aizawa look on, is pretty funny. It's pretty easy to see that Monon is very obviously being encouraged to act the way that he does by his own teacher. And added on to that, Mina, Ayama and Jiro literally holding protest signs against the commentary slander just adds to it all. Back in the arena, Tsu, Kaminari and Shinso reflect on what the best move would be against Class B. Shinso clearly blames himself over not being able to capture Beast after his mistake and the obvious impact that had on their team as a result. But naturally, Tsu and Kaminari are arguably two of the best heroes to be with him right now. They refuse to let him take all the blame, adding to their own faults, and they compliment him on how well he's been doing so far. It's pretty touching, especially knowing how insecure Shinso's been made to feel about the use of his quirk. And here we have the best two characters to make him feel better. Characters that have always proved themselves to be quite kind and encouraging members of 1A. You can see that Shinso's eyes are literally almost gleaming at the praise, but then he shrugs it off, not wanting to get too invested. In any case, it's clear that Sue has a plan, but we don't get to learn a whole lot about it until later. We change scenes to see Class B discuss their own achievements, but before long, Beast becomes confused as he smells not one, but 3 Asuis approaching from different areas. It's made clear by this point that Sue's taken notice that Beast can scent anybody approaching and decided to use her mucus to coat Kaminari and Shinso so he couldn't tell them apart, making it difficult for them to isolate the problematic members of the team. She also recognises that one of Kaminari's electric pointers was still caught on Beast and that they have the advantage to attack and take him out, which would be of a huge benefit as he's clearly been the major threat so far in the battle. And I really enjoyed this scene as Sue's one of my favourite characters and it was great to see her shine in a tactical way. She's a quiet leader but she's always smart and tactical whilst being a great emotional support to her friends. Despite this though, Shiozaki, another formidable opponent, begins to track her way with her vines through the arena to capture at least one member of Class 1A's team. Even though she's hardly been in the match, her savage capture of Kirishima and her vines swirling throughout the arena are pretty scary to say the least. It feels like a real threat which adds more tension to the battle and really balances out Asui's superb tactics. It keeps you on the edge of your seat, still not sure which way the battle's going to go. Shiozaki finally grabs a member of Class 1A and it turns out to be Kaminari, which is honestly a huge benefit to 1A. Shiozaki has Kaminari fully enclosed in the vines so that he can't make a broad attack and electrocute them all, but he still manages to aim a hit at the pointer. And Beast is only saved because of his classmate Rin with his Scales quirk. And at this point, it looks like the fight's going to go the way of 1B. But not for long because Shinso manages to use his brainwashing quirk, imitating Rin and catching Shiozaki unawares. We then learn that Kaminari intended to get captured by Shiozaki all along to aid the others in defeating the heroes, as he'd intended to electrocute Beast and use up a significant portion of Shiozaki's vines. Of course, it didn't go to plan, but it shows that Kaminari does at least try in his own way with his tactics. And whilst he is objectively considered intellectually challenged compared to the rest of his class, he isn't completely stupid and he does have good ideas from time to time. Back at the battle, all hell breaks loose for Class 1B, as Beast no longer trusts communicating with Rin at all out of fear he's going to be brainwashed and they'll lose. Rin's then left alone to battle with Sue, who's captured Shiozaki, whilst Beast charges for Shinso. Once confronted, Shinso seizes the opportunity to redeem himself with the capture bandages and pulls down a steel pipe right onto Beast's head. Ouch. It's pretty cool to see him battle just like Aizawa, but the moment's lost pretty quick as it barely affects Beast, which to be honest, seemed a little unfair. I don't care how big you are, you're not like Kirishima who can harden himself to a rock like consistency. You're still flesh and bone and a pipe would totally at least knock an animal his size for a spin, for a minute or two at least. Funnily enough, Rin calls out behind him, but he's so held on the belief that it's Shinso that he ignores the warnings and gets KO'd by a flying Rin thrown by Sue. And this is confusing because again, how does Rin weigh more than a steel pipe? Plus he gets knocked in the back with Rin and that does more damage than a blow to the head. I'll suspend my disbelief here, but I felt like Shinso should have knocked him out. Class 1A finally captures all 4 members of Class 1B's team and they win, much to the disappointment of 1B's teacher who begrudgingly announces the victory. We have a sweet scene where Sue reflects that Shinso's not behind and is strong just like them. But Shinso still resolves to become better and stand on his own, not wanting to rely on other heroes for his victories. It's great to see Shinso being accepted more and more by the others and them viewing him as a formidable competitor, and it's clear that his journey isn't over just yet. Overall, the episode was pretty good. I really enjoyed it, and apart from a few small moments, I really couldn't fault it at all. But that's just my opinion, and now I'd like to hear yours. Did you like the episode? Hate it? Make sure to leave a comment and let me know.